Jake Harrison had been running his beat-up food truck in the warehouse district for almost 2 years now, and he still couldn't figure out how to make it profitable. The location was cheap, sure, but cheap didn't mean much when you only got 5 customers a night. Most nights he'd stand there flipping burgers for dock workers coming off late shifts, watching his savings drain away dollar by dollar. It was a Tuesday night around 2 in the morning when everything changed. The fog had rolled in thick from the harbor, the kind that made the streetlights look like dying stars. Jake was getting ready to close up when he heard footsteps. Small footsteps. 3 kids emerged from the fog like ghosts. 2 boys and a girl, probably between 10 and 12 years old. They wore odd clothes, kind of formal but not quite right, like they'd raided a costume shop. But it was their eyes that caught Jake's attention. Golden. Actually golden, catching the light like cat eyes but brighter. "Mister, do you have food?" The smallest boy spoke first, his voice shaking. "Not from cold. From hunger." Jake's stomach twisted. He'd grown up poor. He knew that kind of hunger. "Yeah, of course. Come here, sit down. Where are your parents?" The 3 kids exchanged glances. The girl, who seemed to be the oldest, spoke carefully. "Our mother is working. Very far away. She works long shifts. And your dad?" "We don't have one. It's just Mom." Jake didn't ask more questions. He just started cooking. He made 3 deluxe burgers with everything on them, added fries, threw in some cookies he'd been planning to eat himself. The kids watched with desperate eyes as he worked. But then something weird happened. The smallest boy took 1 bite of the burger and immediately spit it out, gagging. The other 2 didn't even try after that. They just stared at the food with these heartbroken expressions. "Can't eat it?" Jake asked gently. The girl shook her head, tears in her golden eyes. "We're sorry. We thought maybe, but no. Our stomachs can't handle normal food. We've been so hungry." Now Jake was confused. What kind of kids couldn't eat normal food? Some rare medical condition? He stood there thinking, watching these 3 starving children, and felt completely helpless. Then he remembered something. Last month he'd gone camping up in the mountains, trying to clear his head about the failing business. He'd bought these mineral supplement packets, the kind hikers use for nutrition. They were still in his emergency kit under the counter, full of weird powdered minerals and salts. It was a crazy idea. Completely insane. But he was desperate to help. Jake grabbed his camping jerky, the really tough stuff that was more leather than meat. He ground it up with the mineral powder, added hot spices to cover the weird taste, mixed in some crystallized salts he used for cooking. The whole time he was thinking this couldn't possibly work. The mixture looked wrong, smelled wrong, probably tasted worse. He handed it to the kids. "Try this. I don't know if it'll help, but..." The smallest boy took a tiny piece. His golden eyes went wide. Then he shoved the whole thing in his mouth. The other 2 followed, eating so fast Jake worried they'd choke. Within seconds all 3 portions were gone. "More?" the boy whispered hopefully. Jake made more. And more after that. He watched in amazement as these kids devoured food that shouldn't even be edible. The mineral content alone should have made them sick. But instead they looked healthier with every bite. Color returned to their cheeks. Their eyes brightened. When they finally stopped eating, the girl reached into her pocket and pulled out 3 coins. They were beautiful, made of some material that seemed to shift colors in the light. Iridescent, like oil on water, but solid. "For the food," she said formally. "We'll pay fair price." Jake tried to refuse, but they insisted with surprising intensity. He took the coins, knowing he'd probably never be able to spend them anywhere. They felt warm in his palm. "Will you come back tomorrow?" he found himself asking. The 3 kids smiled for the first time. Real smiles. "Yes," the older boy said. "If you'll have us. Same time. Same time. Thank you, mister. You have no idea what this means." They disappeared into the fog as mysteriously as they'd arrived. Jake stood there holding 3 impossible coins, wondering what he'd just gotten himself into. He looked at his camping supplies, at the mineral powders and strange salts, and started thinking. If those kids needed this specific kind of food, maybe he could make more varieties. Better recipes. That night, instead of going to sleep, Jake experimented. He crushed gemstones from cheap jewelry, mixed in metal filings, added spices and binders. He created cookies with meteorite dust he'd bought as a novelty years ago. He made noodles with solar salt he'd gotten as a gag gift. None of it should have worked. All of it looked ridiculous. But the next night, at exactly 2 in the morning, 3 kids emerged from the fog again. And they were hungry. Jake fed them his experimental creations. They loved every single thing. The smallest boy, who Jake started thinking of as Tommy, giggled at the spicy meteor cookies. The girl, Lisa, in Jake's mind complimented his technique. The older boy, Derek, just ate silently but gratefully. It became a routine. Every night at 2, like clockwork, they'd appear. Jake would have new recipes ready. They'd eat, pay with those strange coins, talk a little about nothing important, then vanish into the fog. Jake never asked too many questions. They were just hungry kids who needed help. That was enough. Weeks passed. Jake grew fond of them. He started looking forward to 2 in the morning. The food truck was still failing during normal hours, but these 3 kids made it feel worthwhile. He taught Tommy how to handle hot sauce without crying. Lisa helped him clean up sometimes. Derek always made sure his siblings were polite. Then came the night with the thugs. 3 guys, drunk and mean, demanding money. Jake had been through this before, knew how to handle it. But little Tommy stepped forward, his golden eyes suddenly blazing bright as headlights. The temperature around them spiked. The thugs took one look at that impossible light and ran like demons were chasing them. Jake pretended he hadn't seen anything supernatural. Just a trick of the light, he told himself. Just street lights reflecting weird. But deep down he knew. These weren't normal kids. Not even close. And their mother, who worked very far away, probably wasn't a night shift nurse. He kept feeding them anyway. Because whatever they were still just hungry kids. And Jake Harrison had never turned away a hungry kid in his life. He had no idea that decision would soon put him between Earth and an ancient empire. No idea that the mother would turn out to be something beyond his wildest imagination. No idea that his little food truck was about to become the most important location in human history. For now, he just made snacks for 3 strange kids with golden eyes. And honestly, that felt like enough. 3 months had passed since Jake started feeding the 3 mysterious kids. It had become the highlight of his day, honestly. The food truck barely broke even during normal hours, but at 2 in the morning he had purpose. He'd gotten good at making the weird mineral-based foods they needed. He'd even started enjoying the challenge of creating new recipes with ingredients that would poison normal humans. That Wednesday morning, everything fell apart. Jake woke up at noon to his phone exploding with emergency alerts. Every news channel was showing the same thing. A massive ship hovering over Earth. Not a plane. Not a satellite. A genuine alien spacecraft, bigger than Manhattan, made of crystal that caught sunlight and split it into 1,000 colors. His coffee mug slipped from his hand and shattered on the floor. He didn't notice. The news anchor looked terrified. The alien vessel appeared at approximately 6 a.m. Eastern Time. They've identified themselves as representatives of something called the Draconic Sovereignty. They're demanding Earth return their missing royalty. 3 children. They've given us 48 hours to comply or face what they're calling retrieval protocols. The screen switched to a spokesman from the Pentagon, sweating under the lights. We're taking this threat seriously. All military forces are on high alert. We're asking citizens to remain calm while we assess the situation. Remain calm. Right. Jake sat down hard on his couch as his brain tried to process what was happening. Then the news showed security footage from various locations around the city. Grainy images of 3 kids. Golden eyes. The timestamps showed them appearing and disappearing over the past 3 months. His kids. Tommy, Lisa, and Derek. They were the missing royalty. Jake's entire body went cold. He'd been feeding alien princes. Or princesses. Or whatever dragons had. He'd been hiding them in his food truck, teaching them about hot sauce, letting them help clean up. And now their people wanted them back so badly they were threatening the entire planet. That night, Jake opened the truck at the usual time. His hands shook as he prepped ingredients. Maybe they wouldn't come. Maybe they'd already been found. Maybe this was all some massive misunderstanding. At exactly 2 in the morning, 3 figures emerged from the fog. They looked terrified. Tommy ran straight to Jake and grabbed his hand. You saw the news. It wasn't a question. Jake nodded slowly. Yeah, buddy. I saw it. Lisa stepped forward, her golden eyes filling with tears. We're sorry. We never meant for any of this to happen. We just wanted to be normal for a while. Normal. Jake's voice came out rough. Derek, the oldest, explained in a rush. We were on a diplomatic tour. Learning about Earth, preparing for some future alliance. But it was all ceremonies and guards and tutors telling us how to stand, how to speak, what to think. We never got to actually see anything real. So when we got close to Earth, we slipped away from our escort ship. We just wanted to explore, Tommy added quietly. To see what humans were really like. Not the diplomats and politicians. Real people. Lisa continued. But something went wrong. Earth's electromagnetic field, it messed with our abilities. We got stuck in these forms, couldn't change back, couldn't contact anyone. And we couldn't eat human food. We were starving and lost and scared. Then we found you, Tommy said, squeezing Jake's hand tighter. You didn't ask questions. You just helped. You fed us. You were kind. Jake felt like he was drowning. Your people are threatening to attack Earth. There are fighter jets circling the city. World leaders are losing their minds. Mom will fix it, Tommy said with absolute confidence. When she gets home from work, she'll explain everything. She always understands. Your mom. Jake laughed, a little hysterical. Where exactly does your mom work? The three kids exchanged glances. Very far away, Lisa said carefully. She maintains critical infrastructure. She can't leave her post until her shift ends. But she'll be here soon. Derek added, we sent a message 3 days ago when we saw Earth's military mobilizing. Mom's probably already on her way. Jake looked at these three kids, these alien royalty who'd been coming to his food truck every night, and made a decision that was either incredibly brave or monumentally stupid. Probably both. Stay here tonight. In my apartment. Don't go out. Jake, if they find us with you, you'll be in trouble, Lisa protested. I'm already in trouble. Might as well commit to it. He started closing up the truck. Come on. Upstairs. Now. He hid them in his tiny apartment above the food truck while military helicopters thundered overhead. The draconic ship released another statement. 36 hours remaining. Retrieval protocols would begin with planetary scans that might, regrettably, interfere with Earth's electronic infrastructure. A polite way of saying they'd fry every computer on the planet if they had to. The world panicked. Stock markets crashed. People fled cities. Religious leaders called it the end times. Politicians pointed fingers. And Jake Harrison sat in his apartment with three alien kids eating mineral cookies, watching humanity lose its collective mind on television. Your mom better get here soon, he muttered. She will, Tommy insisted. Mom always keeps her promises. By the next morning, the deadline had shrunk to 24 hours. The draconic ship began moving into a lower orbit. Earth's military scrambled jets, knowing it was probably useless. You didn't threaten something that could cross between stars with aircraft that barely left the atmosphere. Jake's phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer. Mr. Harrison? A woman's voice, tight with stress. This is Amanda Pierce from the State Department. We know you've had contact with the missing alien children. Security footage shows them visiting your location repeatedly. Jake's heart stopped. I don't know what you're talking about. Mr. Harrison, please. We're not trying to arrest you. We're trying to prevent a war. If you have any information, any way to contact them, we need your help. He looked at the three kids on his couch, watching him with those impossibly golden eyes. They nodded slightly. Jake took a deep breath. I want immunity. Complete immunity. And I want your promise that nobody fires a single shot at that ship. Silence on the line. Then, I'll need to make some calls. 2 hours later, Jake had a deal. He'd bring the kids in personally. No military involvement. No weapons. Just him and 3 scared children, trying to prevent humanity's first interstellar war. As they prepared to leave, Lisa grabbed his arm. Thank you for everything, Jake. You gave us something we'd never had before. What's that? A chance to just be kids. To make a friend who didn't care about our bloodline or our mother's position. You just cared because we were hungry. Jake felt his throat tighten. Yeah, well, I can't stand seeing hungry kids. Never could. They took a government car to the landing site where a shuttle waited. Jake held Tommy's hand the whole way. Fighter jets screamed overhead. The draconic ship hung in the sky like a crystal chandelier built by gods. 12 hours left on the deadline. Your mom better be one hell of a negotiator, Jake said quietly. Derek smiled for the first time in days. Oh, she is. But that's not why the council will listen. He looked up at the crystal ship. They'll listen because of what she is. What is she? The 3 kids shared a look. Tommy answered simply. She's the reason any of them exist at all. The shuttle doors opened. Jake and the 3 alien children stepped inside, heading up toward a ship full of angry dragons and a diplomatic crisis that could end the world. All because Jake Harrison had fed 3 hungry kids at 2 in the morning. He really hoped their mom was as understanding as they claimed. The shuttle ride up to the draconic ship was the longest 20 minutes of Jake's life. He'd never been in space before. Never thought he would be. Now here he was, strapped into a seat next to 3 alien kids, watching Earth shrink below them while his stomach did backflips. Tommy hadn't let go of his hand since they boarded. The kid was scared. They all were. Lisa kept smoothing down her shirt like she was preparing for a school presentation. Derek stared out the window, his jaw clenched tight. "You guys okay?" Jake asked, knowing it was a stupid question. "The council is going to be angry," Lisa said quietly. "We broke protocols. We disappeared without permission. We caused an interstellar incident. You're kids. Kids make mistakes." "We're not exactly kids by human standards," Derek said. "I'm 53 years old. Lisa's 47. Tommy's the baby at 39. Jake blinked. "I'm sorry, what?" "We're juveniles by our people's standards," Tommy explained. "We won't be fully grown for another 200 years. But yeah, we're older than you. That's disturbing. I've been treating you like 10-year-olds. "We liked it," Tommy said simply. "Nobody's treated us like that in decades." The shuttle docked with a metallic clang that echoed through Jake's bones. The door opened onto a corridor that looked like the inside of a geode. Crystalline walls pulsed with soft light. The ceiling stretched up so high Jake couldn't see where it ended. Two figures waited for them. Not human. Not even close. They stood on two legs and had arms, but that's where the similarity ended. Scales like polished metal. Wings folded against their backs. Faces that were somewhere between reptilian and something entirely alien. Their eyes glowed the same gold as the kids, but colder. Harder. "The royal heirs will come with us," one said in perfect English. "The human will wait here." "No." Tommy's voice was small but firm. "Jake comes with us. He's our friend. That is not protocol." "I don't care about protocol." Tommy's eyes flared brighter. "He protected us. Fed us. He deserves to be heard." The guards looked at each other. Finally they nodded. "The council will decide." They walked through corridors that seemed to shift and change. Jake couldn't tell if it was technology or magic or something humanity didn't have words for yet. Other dragons passed them, some in humanoid forms, others showing more of their true nature. All of them stared at Jake like he was a bug that had somehow wandered into their house. The council chamber took his breath away. It was massive, bigger than any cathedral, with walls that looked like frozen starlight. And at the center, on crystalline thrones that seemed to grow from the floor itself, sat 5 dragons in their true forms. They were enormous. Their heads alone were the size of cars. Their wings, even folded, could have covered Jake's entire apartment building. One was deep blue with scales like sapphires. Another was emerald green. The third gleamed gold. The fourth was pure silver. The fifth, sitting in the center, was black as empty space with scales that seemed to absorb light. Jake's legs nearly gave out. This was what the kids really looked like. These were the things he'd been feeding cookies? The black dragon spoke, and its voice resonated in Jake's chest like thunder. "You are the human who harbored the royal heirs." It wasn't a question. Jake swallowed hard. "Yes, sir. Your Honor. He had no idea how to address a giant space dragon. "He didn't know who we were," Lisa said quickly, stepping forward. The 3 kids had shifted too, showing their true forms for the first time. They were beautiful, smaller than the adults but still the size of horses, with scales that shimmered like gemstones. "We hid our identities. We were desperate and hungry and he helped us." Silence. The blue dragon's voice was ice. "You 3 have caused chaos. Earth's military nearly fired upon our vessels. The diplomatic corps has filed 17 formal complaints. You vanished for 3 months without authorization. We were suffocating." Derek's voice cracked. Every day was the same. Tutors and ceremonies and guards telling us how to walk, how to talk, how to think. We're supposed to be learning about other species, but we never got to actually meet anyone real. Just politicians putting on shows. "So you ran away like children," the gold dragon said dismissively. "We are children." Tommy shot back. "That's the whole problem. You keep treating us like diplomats and heirs and representatives, but we're barely past our first molt. We needed to just be young for once." The silver dragon's gaze shifted to Jake. "And you, human? You knew something was wrong with them. Their appearance, their dietary needs, their obvious abnormalities. Yet you helped them anyway. Why?" Jake found his voice. "They were hungry kids. That's all I needed to know." "How wonderfully simple," the blue dragon said, but it didn't sound like a compliment. "You had no concern for the consequences? The potential danger?" "I grew up poor," Jake said, feeling his fear transform into anger. "I know what it's like to be so hungry it hurts. I know what it's like when people see you struggling and look away because helping is inconvenient. Those kids came to me starving and I wasn't going to be another person who turned away. They're not kids. They are heirs to ancient bloodlines. They're both. And maybe that's what you keep forgetting. Jake stepped forward, his heart hammering. You want them to be perfect little royals, but they're 50 years old and they've never just gotten to be themselves. They've never made a friend who didn't care about their titles. They've never done something just because they wanted to, not because protocol demanded it. The black dragon leaned forward, and Jake felt the weight of its gaze like physical pressure. You presume to lecture the High Council on the raising of dragon heirs? I presume to tell you that those 3 kids laughed more in 3 months at my food truck than they probably have in 3 years here. And if that doesn't tell you something's wrong with your system, then I don't know what will. Silence filled the chamber. Jake realized he'd probably just signed his own death warrant. You didn't yell at ancient space dragons and expect to walk away. The green dragon spoke for the first time, its voice softer. The human makes a point. The heirs have shown remarkable initiative and survival skills during their unsanctioned expedition. These are valuable traits. They broke every protocol, the blue dragon countered. Protocols that may be outdated, the silver dragon mused. When was the last time any heir actually experienced life outside our controlled environments? That is not the issue, the black dragon said coldly. The issue is the human's interference. He harbored royal heirs. Fed them. Kept them hidden. Such actions cannot go unpunished regardless of intent. Jake's blood ran cold. No. The word came from everywhere and nowhere at once. The chamber's light shifted, dimmed, then blazed impossibly bright. No one touches the human who fed my children. The wall behind the council dissolved. Reality itself seemed to split open. And through that impossible tear in space stepped something that made the council dragons look like house pets. She was beyond massive. Her scales held entire nebulas. Her eyes were like staring into suns. Even compressed into the chamber, she seemed infinite. The temperature spiked instantly and Jake felt sweat pour down his face. Tommy gasped. Mom? The 3 young dragons rushed forward, shifting to their smaller forms, suddenly looking exactly like the kids Jake knew. They crashed into their mother's lowered head, and despite her cosmic scale, Jake saw tenderness in the gesture. This was Valdris, the keeper of the Mother Star, the living sun that powered the draconic sovereignty. And she just arrived to save Jake's life. He hoped. Jake couldn't breathe. It wasn't fear exactly, though he was definitely terrified. It was the sheer presence of her. Valdris filled the chamber in a way that defied physics. She was there, massive and overwhelming, but somehow the space contained her without feeling crowded. Her scales shifted colors like the surface of a star, and Jake could feel heat radiating from her even though she had to be 100 feet away. The 5 council dragons had risen from their thrones. Not in aggression. In respect. Maybe even fear. Valdris lowered her enormous head to nuzzle her 3 children, who looked impossibly tiny against her. Tommy was crying. Lisa pressed her face against her mother's scales. Derek just stood there trembling with relief. For a moment she was just a mom who'd been worried sick about her kids. Then she turned her attention to the council, and the temperature in the room dropped 30 degrees in an instant. Explain. Her voice wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It resonated in Jake's bones, in his teeth, in his soul. Explain why my children felt the need to run away. Explain why they were so desperate to escape that they risked getting lost in an alien star system. The black dragon, who'd seemed so imposing before, suddenly looked small. Great Keeper, the heirs were in the care of our finest tutors. They were receiving the best education in diplomacy and statecraft. That's not what I asked. Valdris's eyes blazed brighter. I asked why they ran away. None of the council members spoke. Finally Lisa stepped forward. May I speak, Mother? Always, little star. Lisa took a shaky breath. They weren't teaching us about other species. Not really. We'd study humans but only through data and recordings. We'd learn about their governments and economies, but never meet actual people. When we asked to visit Earth to actually talk to humans, they said it was too dangerous. Too unpredictable. Protocol demanded we maintain proper distance. Tommy jumped in. Every day was the same. Wake up. Lessons. Ceremonies. More lessons. Practice speeches. Learn which fork to use at diplomatic dinners. How to stand. How to bow. What words were appropriate for addressing different ranks. His voice got quieter. Nobody ever asked what we wanted. Or how we felt. Or if we were happy. Derek's voice was hard with barely contained anger. When the diplomatic tour was scheduled, we thought finally we'd get to see something real. But it was just more ceremonies. More guards. More tutors telling us not to embarrass the family. We'd look out the windows at Earth and see these amazing cities and oceans and mountains, and we couldn't even go down there. So we slipped away, Lisa continued. We waited until the night shift when security was lighter. We took an escape pod and headed for Earth. We just wanted to explore. To meet real people. To have one adventure that was ours. Valdris listened silently, but Jake could see something in her cosmic eyes. Sadness. Regret. Maybe guilt. But our powers stopped working right, Tommy said. Earth's electromagnetic field messed with our abilities. We got stuck in these smaller forms. We tried to contact the ship but our communicators were fried. And we couldn't eat anything. Human food made us sick. We were so hungry. For 2 weeks we went hungry, Derek said quietly. Trying different foods hoping something would work. Getting weaker. We were scared, Mom. Really scared. Then we found Jake. Tommy looked back at the human standing frozen near the entrance. He saw us hungry and just helped. Didn't ask a million questions. Didn't demand to know who we were. He just made food until he found something we could eat. And he kept feeding us. Every night. For 3 months. Valdris turned her massive gaze to Jake. He felt like an ant under a magnifying glass. Every instinct screamed at him to run, but his legs wouldn't move. Come here, human. It wasn't a request. Jake's feet moved automatically, carrying him across the chamber floor. He stopped about 20 feet away, as close as he could get without the heat becoming unbearable. Closer. I'll catch on fire. Valdris made a sound that might have been a laugh. The air around Jake suddenly cooled to comfortable levels. Now. Closer. He walked until he stood directly before her. Her head alone was the size of his food truck. One eye, looking down at him, was bigger than his entire body. He could see stars reflected in those eyes. Actual stars. Like she carried galaxies inside her. You fed my children. Yes, ma'am. You asked nothing in return. They were hungry kids. Didn't seem right to charge them for basic kindness. You protected them from threats. Jake thought about the night with the thugs. They mostly protected themselves. I just didn't want them to get hurt. Valdris's eye closed. Then Jake felt something impossible. A presence in his mind. Not invading. Not forcing. Just there. Asking permission. I need to see, her voice whispered in his head. I need to know the truth. May I? Jake had no idea what he was agreeing to, but he nodded. His memories opened like a book. He felt Valdris moving through the past 3 months. She saw the first night, 3 desperate kids emerging from the fog. She felt his confusion when they couldn't eat normal food. His determination to find something that would work. The joy when they devoured that first batch of mineral jerky. She saw every night after that. Jake teaching Tommy about hot sauce, laughing when the kid's eyes watered. Lisa helping him clean up after closing, talking about her brothers and how protective Derek was. Derek slowly opening up, admitting he was scared about the responsibility waiting for him back home. Valdris saw the night with the thugs. Saw Jake step between Tommy and danger without hesitation, despite having no powers, no weapons, nothing but a meat tenderizer and stubbornness. Saw his relief when the criminals ran, and his deliberate choice not to ask questions about Tommy's glowing eyes. She saw Jake lying awake at night worrying about these strange kids. Spending money he didn't have on special ingredients. Researching mineral supplements and crystalline compounds, trying to make better food for them. Not because he expected payment. Just because he wanted them to be healthy and happy. The presence withdrew. Jake staggered, suddenly dizzy. Tommy rushed over to steady him. When Valdris spoke again, her voice shook the entire chamber. Counsel. You placed my children in an environment so restrictive, so focused on protocol and appearances, that they felt their only option was to run away. They were willing to risk their lives for a taste of freedom. That is not education. That is imprisonment. The Blue Dragon tried to protest. Great Keeper, we were only following established protocols for royal education. These methods have been used for millennia. And perhaps that is the problem. Valdris's scales flared brighter. My children spent 3 months with this human. In that time, they learned more about resilience, adaptation, and genuine connection than years of your sterile lessons provided. This human, with no knowledge of our species, managed to solve a dietary problem that stumped them for weeks. He taught them practical skills. He gave them emotional support. He treated them as individuals, not political assets. She turned back to Jake. You fed my children when they were starving. You protected them from harm. You asked nothing in return. You could have turned them over to your authorities, claimed rewards, sought fame. Instead, you hid them when war threatened. Brought them here yourself to prevent violence. Jake's mouth was dry. I just didn't want anyone to get hurt. Not them. Not Earth. Seemed like everybody was about to do something stupid out of fear. Wisdom from a food truck operator. There was warmth in her voice now. Tell me, Jake Harrison. What payment do you seek for your service to my family? The chamber fell silent. Every dragon stared at him. This was it. The moment where he could ask for anything. Wealth beyond measure. Technology. Power. A place among the stars. Jake looked at Tommy, Lisa, and Derek. 3 kids who just wanted to be normal for a while. Who'd found joy in his crummy food truck and terrible jokes. Who'd helped him clean up and told him stories about nebula diving and crystal caves on distant worlds. Can they visit sometimes? His voice cracked. If they want to. No pressure. But maybe they could stop by the truck now and then. I've been working on this new recipe with copper filings and I think they'd really like it. You could have heard a pin drop. The council dragons looked stunned. Even Valdris seemed surprised. That's all you want? Continued access to my children? They're good kids. I'd miss them if they just disappeared. But only if they want to visit. I'm not trying to claim anything or demand anything. Just, if they're allowed to have friends, I'd like to be one. Valdris stared at him for a long moment. Then she began to laugh. It sounded like solar flares singing, like the music of creation itself. The whole chamber vibrated with it. Valdris's laughter filled the chamber like a physical thing, warm and overwhelming. Jake had no idea if he'd said something funny or insulting or what. He just stood there, sweating and confused, while an entity that could literally power solar systems laughed at his request. Finally she calmed down. Kin-friend. Her voice carried weight that made the air shimmer. I name you kin-friend to the House of Valdris, Jake Harrison of Earth. This title has not been granted to an outsider in 10,000 years. You are now family with all the rights and protections that entails. Jake blinked. I'm sorry, what? Tommy grabbed his arm, excited. That means you're basically our uncle now. It's a huge honor. I asked if I could see you guys sometimes and got adopted? Essentially yes, Lisa said, grinning. Congratulations. Valdris turned her massive head toward the council. Now let us address the real issue. My children's education. The black dragon shifted uncomfortably. Great Keeper, we are open to suggestions for improvement. I'm not making suggestions. I'm making changes. Valdris's voice hardened. My children will continue their formal education with you. Diplomacy, history, statecraft. These things matter. But they will spend equal time exploring. Real exploration. Visiting worlds, meeting people from different species, having actual experiences. That's highly irregular, the blue dragon protested. So is having royal heirs run away because they're miserable. We're trying something new. Valdris's eyes blazed. They'll go in pairs or groups with light security. Not an army of guards, just enough to handle emergencies. They'll file reports on what they learn. Cultural observations. Practical problem solving. Real-world education instead of theoretical nonsense. The silver dragon spoke up. And if they encounter danger? They'll handle it. They're stronger than you think. Valdris looked at her children with obvious pride. They survived 3 months on an alien world with malfunctioning abilities. They adapted. They found help. They made rational decisions under pressure. That's more valuable than any ceremony. Derek stepped forward. We want to learn, Council. Truly. But we want to learn things that matter. Not just how to stand properly at a state dinner, but how different species actually live. What they value. How they solve problems. You can't learn that from a classroom. We almost started a war over this, the gold dragon said quietly. The incident has damaged our reputation. The incident revealed flaws in our system, Valdris countered. Better to discover them now and fix them than maintain a perfect facade while our heirs suffer. Other families should hear about this. Other young ones trapped in rigid protocols should know there's another way. She turned back to Jake. As for Earth, your people need to understand something. My children were never in danger from us. We would have retrieved them peacefully. But your governments panicked and mobilized militaries which forced us to respond. Communication failed on both sides. To be fair, Jake said carefully, a giant crystal ship appearing overnight is pretty scary when you don't know what's happening. A valid point. Which is why Earth needs better integration with the wider galaxy. You're still so isolated here. Valdris paused, considering. A gift, I think. Payment for one human's extraordinary kindness to 3 lost children. The chamber's walls became transparent suddenly, showing Earth rotating below. Valdris raised one massive claw and light gathered around it. Bright, burning, impossible light. She shaped it carefully, compressing and molding it like clay, until a sphere of pure radiant energy floated before her. A microstar, she explained. Stable, self-sustaining, perfectly safe. It will orbit your planet and provide unlimited clean energy for thousands of years. No more burning fossil fuels. No more energy wars. This is my gift to Earth. Jake stared at the miniature sun floating in front of him. That's incredible. But I didn't do anything to deserve that. I just fed some kids. Exactly. You fed some hungry children without knowing who they were or what you'd gain. That simple kindness is worth more than all the diplomatic treaties in the galaxy. Valdris gently pushed the microstar toward the transparent wall. It phased through and began drifting toward Earth, guided by her will. Your world scientists will need time to build infrastructure around it, but the hard part is done. The council dragons were silent. Jake got the feeling they weren't entirely comfortable with this decision, but nobody argued with Valdris. Probably wise. Now, Valdris said, her tone becoming almost playful, I believe my children mentioned something about your food truck? 2 weeks later, Jake stood behind his counter at 2 in the morning, but everything was different now. The truck itself had been upgraded with technology he didn't understand and probably couldn't explain without sounding insane. The inside was bigger than the outside, which shouldn't be possible but apparently was when you had access to dimensional engineering. His ingredient storage now included items from 17 different star systems. He had spices from planets he couldn't pronounce, crystalline salts formed in the hearts of dead stars, and vegetables that technically counted as semi-sentient but assured him they were happy to be eaten. His freezer existed partially in another dimension to keep things fresh indefinitely. The microstar hung in the sky, a small bright point that news anchors couldn't stop talking about. Earth scientists were losing their minds trying to figure out how to harness it. Governments were forming committees. The UN had created 3 new departments just to handle alien relations. But at Jake's truck, things were wonderfully normal. Tommy, Lisa, and Derek showed up right on schedule in their human-looking forms. But they brought friends. 5 other young dragons, all curious about the legendary food truck and the human who'd befriended the keeper's children. Okay, Jake said, grinning as he pulled out his new ingredients. Who wants to try the supernova salsa? Fair warning, it's actually made with matter from a supernova, so it's genuinely the hottest sauce in the known universe. The young dragons cheered. They crowded around the counter, so obviously just kids despite being decades or centuries old, excited about trying weird food and hanging out somewhere that wasn't formal or restrictive. Jake taught them about Earth spices and cooking techniques. They taught him about their worlds, their cultures, their dreams. One wanted to be an explorer. Another wanted to study ancient languages. A third just wanted to race ships through asteroid fields. Normal kid stuff just on a cosmic scale. Lisa helped him cook, having gotten good at it over the past weeks. Derek managed the crowd, making sure everyone got served. Tommy just bounced around excitedly, thrilled to share his favorite place with his friends. Other customers started showing up too. Word had spread. Humans curious about the aliens. Aliens curious about Earth. The industrial district had become the weirdest cultural exchange point in the solar system, all centered around a beat-up food truck. Jake's business was actually profitable now. Turned out aliens were willing to pay premium prices for authentic Earth cuisine mixed with exotic ingredients. He'd hired 2 assistants just to keep up with demand. But he always kept the 2 a.m. slot reserved for Tommy and his friends. Some things were more important than profit. Around 3 in the morning, as Jake was teaching a young emerald dragon how to properly fold a burrito, the air shimmered. Valdris appeared, compressed down to merely elephant-sized. The young dragons immediately straightened up, respectful but not terrified. Great keeper, they chorused. At ease, little ones. Valdris looked at Jake. I came to check on my investment. How goes the cultural exchange? Pretty good. Your kids are natural teachers. They've been helping me understand dragon dietary needs better. Turns out copper is basically a vitamin for you guys. Indeed. Valdris accepted a sample plate Jake offered. She ate delicately despite her size. Excellent work. You've expanded your recipe base significantly. Had to. Got more mouths to feed. Jake gestured at the crowd of young dragons. They keep bringing friends. I think I'm accidentally becoming the most popular hangout spot for juvenile dragons in this sector. Good. They need this. Places where they can be themselves without judgment or expectation. Valdris finished her food. The council has received reports from my children about their experiences here. Several other families are now requesting similar arrangements for their young ones. You may have started a revolution in dragon child rearing, Jake Harrison. I just make snacks. You make spaces where people feel safe and valued. That's rarer than you think. Valdris turned to leave, then paused. Oh, Earth's government has been trying to contact me about formalizing relations. Tell them I'll negotiate through you. What? No. I'm not a diplomat. Exactly. You're honest, straightforward, and care more about people than politics. Perfect qualities for a cultural liaison. She vanished before Jake could protest further. Tommy laughed at his expression. Welcome to galactic politics, Uncle Jake. I own a food truck. I'm not qualified for this. You befriended the Keeper's children and prevented a war. You're overqualified. Lisa patted his arm sympathetically. Don't worry. We'll help you with the paperwork. Jake looked around his upgraded truck, at the young dragons laughing and eating and just being kids, at the microstar shining above, at the impossible life he'd stumbled into by showing basic kindness to 3 hungry children. He started laughing. Couldn't help it. 3 months ago his biggest worry was making rent. Now he was apparently Earth's liaison to an interstellar empire, running the galaxy's weirdest restaurant, an honorary uncle to the most powerful being in the known universe. All right, he said, pulling out more ingredients. Who wants to try the meteor dust cookies? They're Tommy's favorite. The night continued. Kids ate, laughed, shared stories. Jake cooked and listened and occasionally dispensed advice when asked. It was chaotic and weird and wonderful. And every night at 2 a.m., without fail, 3 special kids with golden eyes came to visit their favorite human. The one who'd fed them when they were hungry and never asked for anything in return. The food truck's new sign read, Harrison's Cosmic Kitchen, feeding the universe, one hungry kid at a time. Turns out that was enough to change everything.